Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this bonus episode, it's Kart Fighter, one of the most famous bootleg titles that ever came out for the Famicom. It is a fighting game based on a Street Fighter 2-like engine, and has the 8 playable Mario characters from the original Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. The 8 playable fighters are Toad, Yoshi, Mario, Luigi, Donkey Kong Jr., Princess Peach, Koopa Troopa, and Bowser. Now, for this run, I'm going to play as Luigi. No surprise that Mario and Luigi pretty much play like Ken and Ryu. Now, Luigi's main move that I can use is the Fireball, or his Hadouken-like move. He's supposed to have other moves as well, but they seem a bit harder and trickier to pull off. Some characters have more moves at their disposal than others. The game itself is a pretty standard, typical fighting game, and the NES was not really well known for its fighters. In fact, only had a handful of them released in total. And what's funny is this bootleg is actually one of the better playing, not only bootlegs, but one of the better playing fighting games on the system, even though it was never actually, of course, an official title by any means. Each matchup is a best 2 out of 3, and the game can actually be played single or 2-player multiplayer. For the most part, the kick and the punch are the main attacks. I do a lot of jump kicks, which seem to work well, as being able, of course, to close distance with the enemy and be able to sometimes combo, though comboing moves can be a bit difficult in this game. Because it's based on Street Fighter, you have the whole dizzy mechanic. After delivering enough hits to enemies, sometimes they'll become dizzy, giving you a free hit. There are also throws that you can do in order to chuck your opponent and do a pretty good amount of damage to him that way. In the game, you go through all 8 of the fighters in the game, facing off against all of them, and then you have one final matchup against Bowser. You have to fight Bowser not only through the 8 regular characters, but then you conclude the game with one last fight against Bowser, since I guess they decided not to do an extra boss or anything. One of the only disappointing things about the game is that the AI is not great. I'm playing it on the hardest difficulty, the level 5 difficulty, but the AI can still be very predictable, and sometimes you're going to notice some really stupid patterns that the characters in the game end up doing. However, AI is different per enemy, so sometimes you'll have a much tougher fight depending upon who you end up facing. Toad is a little bit more competent than some of the other fighters, and he actually can put up a bit of an offense, but for the most part I'm going to be using my kicks to try to keep him at bay. Those jump kicks are extremely deadly and easily the best strategy in the game in order to be able to keep doing damage and win rounds. If you launch a projectile against an enemy and they do one to you, whoever's hits first is the one that goes through, so you can't like both do a Hadouken and actually hit each other with it. Whoever hits first, the other one's projectile instantly disappears. So sometimes you'll notice I'll throw one but the enemy doesn't get hit, or vice versa, that the enemy throws one at me but I end up hitting him just a microsecond or so beforehand, allowing mine to have priority and be able to take him out. There's no like versus screens or maps or anything, but there is a handful of different levels for you to fight at. Next up we go to Yoshi, or Yoshi, which is the Japanese name. All the characters, I think, except for Mario, which is named Mari on his character part of his screen. Other than that, every one of the other ones is named their Japanese counterparts. Now this stage, you may notice, is a little bit based on Little Nemo the Dream Master. The giant mushrooms in the background look very similar to the ones from the first level of that game, the Mushroom Forest, though there's the Mario Clouds as well. I think the stages are some of the most impressive thing about the game. They actually really end up looking quite nice, and just graphically as a whole, the game looks quite nice. The only thing kind of that's not the best is a lot of the flicker and all, and there's of course a myriad of other little problems like hit detection. You may have noticed Yoshi did his tongue move, where he's able to stick out his tongue, but it has a really big hit radius and can hit you even when you're like way above the tongue itself, which of course works well if you're playing as Yoshi. Yoshi also has a few moves at his disposal. Besides, he also has a fireball like us. He has the tongue as well. He also has kind of a floating kick-like move that he's able to do. Next up is Mario, and we're battling him on the lava bridge level that looks like it's inside one of the, classic Bowser-esque castles. The AI for both Mario and Luigi is pretty dumb. A lot of times they just constantly spam the uppercut move, the spinning uppercut. Now the AI for Luigi will also do this, but I seemingly have a hard time pulling off the uppercut myself. I've tried a lot of combinations of buttons and just can't seem to pull off the uppercut, but it makes for an extremely easy fight. In fact, if you just want to make things a little bit tougher, just don't attack him and do some other stuff, but if you want to, you can just keep doing those jump kicks to him while he's in the corner using his shuriken-like move. Also, some characters I have noticed also change their AI a bit between rounds sometimes. Not all of them, but maybe it was just my luck when practicing. I noticed that especially with Bowser or Koopa, King Koopa, in the game. Mario decides this time, though, to do a little bit more of his projectiles instead of just doing the uppercuts. So this is one of the examples that sometimes between rounds they may finally, decide to do things a little bit different. Mario has his shuriken-like uppercut, he has the Hadoken, and as well as a flying kick that he's able to do as his special moves. Next up is one of my favorite characters represented in the game here with Donkey Kong Jr. because of his spinning ballerina-esque attack that he's able to do, and he's going to do that a lot. A lot of times he likes to do that. If you do a ducking sweep kick, a lot of times you're able to negate his spin. But it doesn't always work. Sometimes I still end up getting hit, but it does end up working pretty well. He also can throw out bananas that will actually hit the ground and slide across the ground itself, and of course if they make contact with you, they'll knock you down. The level here, though, I'm not positive what they base it completely on, other of course there's the thwomps in the background. There's a few other games that have very similar hallways and giant windows that are in the background. I'm not sure though, like I said, what game exactly they pull this one from, but it looks very, very familiar. The thing that Donkey Kong Jr. does though with that spin is it usually allows him to dodge some of my attacks, but hopefully I'm able to kind of get in there and hit enough of the moves of my flying kicks to kind of keep them away. If you're able to do a flying kick, always immediately either follow with a sweep or a standing kick, because sometimes you can combo. Not all the time, but sometimes you can end up doing a combo, which does a significant amount of damage to your enemies. Now next up is Princess Peach, who has a very interesting look in this game. It's probably one of the things that's more famous from Kart Fighter in general, with the whole kind of short sleeve dress, but it's into a mini skirt instead. You have the knee-high-esque boots and all that's going on. Definitely went for a little bit of sex appeal when it came to the Peach sprite here in Kart Fighter. She also is a pretty competent AI opponent. She can a lot of times counter your flying kicks. If you don't time it right when you go for a flying dive kick like I like to do a lot, she can actually hit you in the air. She's the only one of the opponents that was consistently able to nail me with that in particular. She also does her spin attack, which is very similar to Donkey Kong Jr.'s when she ends up doing it, though I feel like his is a bit more deadly. She also has a Hadoken-like fireball-esque move, which she will use, as you can see, knocked me on my butt there with it, but thankfully able to get right back up and right into kind of my combos. We're down to only a couple of fights left. Of the last three, Koopa, Bowser, is one of them. We'll then have to face off in a mirror match with Luigi before we face off with Bowser for a second time. Now, Bowser, one of the more disappointing sprites, to be honest, just because he is a little bit shorter. He also has some weird animations when it comes to his tail attack, and thus makes him a little bit more slow than some of the other ones, and actually allows it to be a pretty easy fight. Though the second round against him usually changes up a bit, with him doing a lot more of his shoulder charge-like move. Bowser, of course, also has a projectile at his disposal that he's able to do, and if anyone should, it should definitely, of course, be Bowser, and he uses it a lot more in the second round than he does in the first, or at least from my experience. Maybe other people have different experiences when it comes to the second round against Bowser compared to the first, but I always find he ends up going more into that charged shoulder a lot. Makes it a little bit harder for me to actually deliver my jump kick to him, but a little bit of timing and patience, and I'm still able to kind of hit those moves when I need to. Next up is the mirror match against Luigi, but because of the limitations of like sprite colors and all that stuff, Luigi's alt color is just Mario's color of red, but it is Luigi. But his AI is very similar, if not identical, to Mario, when he'll do a lot of the shuriken uppercuts in order to try to like keep me at bay. Sometimes he'll do his flying kick, but like I said, I'm unable to really kind of pull off the uppercut or the flying kick while playing as Luigi, and I've tried a bunch of the different things, but it didn't seem to really pull off. So I usually only kind of do the fireball and a lot of the jump kick, obviously, and that seems to work well as far as being able to actually get through the game. One funny note is that there is a score in the corner, as you may notice above the health bars, and you can actually get on the high score screen at the end of the game. When you beat the game, you get a high score screen and the end, and that's all you get for the endings, unfortunately, as far as that's concerned. But what's funny is the scores are extremely high as far as the scores go. I don't even know if it's possible in a normal playthrough to be able to get a high enough score, unless maybe you perfected every round or something. But either way, I'm able to take out Luigi here as he decides just to do a lot of uppercuts. Even in round 2, he just spams uppercut and stays in the corner and goes down easily. And now we're right back to the desert and back to facing off against Bowser, who will do his dumpy looking tail move again in order to try to hit us, but it ends up making him very vulnerable and easy to kind of combo with the jump kicks. Though round 2 is about as difficult as it was the last time around, where he decides to do like more shoulder charging and do the fireball spit as well. For the second round, the final round here of the game, we have to watch out for the shoulder charge more here, but nicely timed jump kicks can still keep Bowser knocked back and into the corners, and sometimes can still hit those little kick combos. He will block a lot of projectiles in the second round, making it pretty much useless of actually trying to hit those. Go for one more fireball that I'm able to just barely hit before he ends up hitting me with his fireball, and now with just a tiny little bit of health left, Bowser's deciding to try to put up a little bit of a fight here at the very end, with just a couple of hits left needed. Then after delivering that final hit, we can sit back and enjoy the very brief little ending here to Kart Fighter, the bootleg game for the Famicom. There you guys go. There is all the high scores, which like I said is really hard to actually get a score high enough to get on there, and then you kind of get one last screen and clouds going by. It's kind of like the trophy stand scene in normal Super Mario Kart, but here instead of seeing any of that, we just have the end. I wish there was some endings and all, but it's still a pretty well-made bootleg title. There's a lot of bad bootleg games out there, that is for sure. This is one of the first ones I ever saw, had ever heard of, and it's actually not bad. Going back and replaying it now for this video, I've actually had a little bit of fun doing so. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or commenting down below. If you enjoyed this Play It Through, be sure to check out the one I just did for Ninja Gaiden on the Atari Lynx, or for something a little bit different, I recently did a Super Luigi ROM hack of Super Mario 1. Of course, I also need to thank all the members of my Patreon. You guys are amazing. Your continued support allows me to keep doing what I'm doing. So if you enjoy the video and would like to help out the channel as well, just click the little Patreon button for all the details. Now, this is the first bootleg game I've done for a Play It Through, and I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you want to see me do more bootlegs? And if so, let me know which ones in particular you really want to see me cover in the future. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.